Hey, what is up, guys? This is the Leafs Convo podcast. I'm Norman James, along with Mike Jello. January 23rd, 2020. We have no Leafs hockey, no hockey at all, as we wait for the NHL All-Star weekend of festivities and shinny and multiple games and all sorts of goings on. Mr. A, how are you killing time as we wait for the Maple Leafs to resume play and the fight to get back into the playoff mix?
Good afternoon, Norm. Probably going to see a few movies, and not too many days that usually there's not some hockey on. That's why I think that this weekend with the NHL All-Star Game and the NFL Pro Bowl could be the worst with the worst extended space in the sporting year. I hate it. I probably won't watch much of the All-Star Game because it's not really aimed for me, but I know it's a rite of passage for the league, so I just take it for what it's worth.
Well, it's the crap before the cool stuff, because after all of this is done, we focus in on the NHL trade deadline, and as you know, the anticipation is palpable. Have you seen the Joker and Star Wars and all that stuff?
I haven't seen either one of those. I saw 1917, the World War I movie, which was really good. I'll probably just go online and look at a few different options. I may see Joker because I've heard his Joaquin Phoenix's performance is great, but just something to kill time until Monday when the Leafs start back up.
OGs and converts, I asked how you are enjoying the break in community. YouTube.com/the Leafs Convo. Please like and subscribe and vote. Maury Zelkovich, like hearing from Maury. It's nice to not hear about the Leafs getting blown away again and again and again.
It almost is the worst time for a break, coming off 6 games where they lost 5 of 6. They went 1-3-2 in those 6 games. And, you put that alongside of what Columbus has done in the last 6 games and what Carolina and Philadelphia and Florida have done. They're all over 500, or they've had winning streaks of 6 games. So, they've all gained in the standings while the Leafs have sort of floundered a little bit. But I would expect this team to sort of come back from the break a little bit refreshed. We know that Austin Matthews is not playing in the All-Star game because of a nagging wrist injury, which we heard that he had a nagging injury a few weeks back from a Chris Johnston report. So it's not surprising, and that it's revealed and he's not playing. He's still going to St. Louis to participate in the extracurricular activities, but he's not going to play, so he gets a little bit of rest. And Jake Muzzin is accepted a conditioning stint down with the Marlies, so he'll get a few games in this week, waiting for the team to start playing again on Monday. So I just think it's a little bit of an overreaction right now. There's some trade chatter out there, and I think a little bit of it is irresponsible in the sense that everybody's connecting Kasperi Kapanen to a trade for a backup goaltender or something of that ilk. And thankfully, like Elliot Friedman in his 31 Thoughts column this week came out and said, well, the Leafs are not trading Kapanen unless it's a big deal and they're getting something of equal value back. And that's not a backup in Alexander Georgiev, and it's not a rental. It's a defenseman who's signed and on term for a few years. And unless there's a deal out there like that, they're not trading Kapanen.
Mike, do you ever trade anyone of substance for a backup goaltender? Ever? Like a guy who can be a top 6 forward somewhere, maybe on your team from time to time, for a backup goaltender? And I have gone on about needing a professional to offset your number one, but a player of substance for a backup, unless you're for sure winning a Stanley Cup, and you'll never be for sure. That's crazy.
I mean, that being said, Georgiev, I believe, could be a future number one. He's played well with the Rangers. There may be teams out there that believe he's a future number one. Maybe even Toronto believes he's a future number one. But the problem is that you have Frederik Andersen under contract next year for $5 million. Georgiev is a restricted free agent in arbitration next summer. He's probably going to get between $2 to $3 million. And the Leafs are not signing or trading for a backup goalie. They're going to have to pay $2 to $3 million with their cap situation. So I don't see it as a fit.
Maciej Gutkowski, another great contributor to community. YouTube.com/the Leafs Convo. Please like and subscribe. I'm spending the break thinking about how the Leafs need defensive help You mentioned that Muzzin's doing some conditioning with the Marlies. That's nice. I'm expecting Kyle Dubas to make a deal for a defenseman. If he's serious and the organization's serious about taking the next step, you're not waiting around for Rasmus Sandin and Timothy Liljegren to become stalwarts in 5 or 6 years, because we know a lot of fans believe in the slow, methodical process of getting somewhere. I feel like management's going to want to do something a little bit more substantial sooner. So bring on a defenseman, bring on a healthy Muzzin.
Yeah, I think if the right fit is there, I don't think Dubas will hesitate. I think there's an opportunity out there. There are teams that have defensemen that are not just rentals. I mean, that's the thing. They really can't get into the rental market because they don't have the cap space, unless they keep Morgan Riley out for the rest of the regular season and only activate him after, if they make the playoffs. That's the only way that they can sort of finagle around the cap. If they trade for a defenseman like a Brendan Dillon who's making over $3 million, then they have to open up $3 million in cap space, and they really have nobody on their roster other than Cody Ceci. And I don't, then you're basically adding a defenseman to get rid of a defenseman. Maybe Dillon is better than Ceci, but it's sort of 6 of one, half a dozen of another. You really need both of them to improve your defense a little bit. And I just think if they make a deal, it's going to be a hockey deal, and hockey deals at the deadline are tough to make.
This is the Leafs Convo podcast presented by Oakridge Ford.
Nathan Jenner here from Oakridge Ford with a banging deal from your favorite Ford dealership. Get a 5-year lease on the all-new 2020 Escape SE all-wheel drive for only $188 bi-weekly plus HST with 0 down. That's right, 0 down. For a limited time, get a 55-inch 4K HD TV with the purchase of any in-stock 2020. Oakridge Ford, our reputation gets you here, our customer service keeps you coming back. For full details, visit oakridgeford.com.
We've had combo listeners buy vehicles from Oakridge Ford. Not only did they get an amazing vehicle and get to deal with me, they earned money for it. You can earn money just by pointing someone in our direction. 3 words, go see Norm, earns you $100 in community. Severino Cudacio giving us good wishes in community. He says he's feeling a little bit worried about the Maple Brothers because he feels like they're in trouble. They seem like they're in trouble right now. Who knows? They can dig themselves out of it. Severino, thank you very much for being a contributor to the Leafs Convo. And Cool and Trending is spending a lot of his downtime with no Maple Leafs in current action, watching Maple Leafs in former action on YouTube, listening to a lot of Andy Frost. Mike, do you still think of Andy? I know you and him were tied at the hip for many years on Leafs Talk after the games. Legendary stuff. Do you still think about him?
I touch base with him via Twitter every once in a while. He's basically, I believe, semi-retired after Q107 let him go. I think about him every game in the sense that I miss him doing the PA at Leaf games.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing against the guy who's doing it right now, but I just, his distinctive voice was something that I heard for almost 20 years at the ACC and now Scotiabank Arena, and sort of wish he was back there. But yeah, he's a great guy.
I wonder whatever happened to Nigel Cadbury. That was infamous. Remember that?
His candy bars were wonderful.
Yeah, that was awesome. So the story is Andy's doing Leafs Talk and people are pissed off about something, and the guy calls in and says, yeah, one of my favorite players on the Leafs is Nigel Cadbury. Nigel Cadbury, meaning Nazem Kadri, and Andy lost it. Nigel Cadbury. That was the greatest thing, Mike. That's why I miss Leafs Talk. And when he would do the scores and the wrap-up at the end of all the conversation, and the Leonard Skinner would be playing, or April Wine or whatever.
It was Allman Brothers.
Oh, it was the Allman Brothers, yeah. Okay. I think you've corrected me on that a few times on this very podcast. But again, see, all of that classic rock is lumped in. If it's not Rush, then if it's not prog rock, forget about it. But the sounds, Mike, that's what I remember, because it was all audio and it just sticks with you forever. And who knows, Mike, maybe there are a couple of people who are believing in what we're doing the same way we believed in and were a part of what Andy was doing for so long. Arish Salim on Community. Do you see Matt Dumba as a target? You see all sorts of bullshit on social media. The Leafs linked to players that they're probably not supposed to be linked to, because now is the time. But the Leafs and Matt Dumba, do you see any sort of fit there, and any way for something like that to come together?
It's possible because Dumba sort of fits the the description of what I think the Leafs would be looking for, a defenseman who I believe Dumba is a righty. He's making $6 million. He just signed an extension. I think he has 3 years left at least on that deal. I think he's a gifted offensive defenseman. Defensively, he's not. He's had some problems. So that I think the Leafs personally would like to get somebody who's more of a two-way guy because they really have a lot of offensive defensemen and they really need to solidify their the play in their own zone. But Dumba would be an upgrade. But again, the cost would be, somebody like Kapanen or Janssen or Kerfoot, and he's making $6 million, and those players are making in the mid three range. So that's not a deal unless the Leafs throw in $2 million plus in salary, and I don't see where that happens. It might be a deal that happens in the summer. Everything is on the table when it happens in the summer. That's why I think any kind of big deal like that is probably easier to do.
So Matthew Tanti has an interesting question. He'd like to know how important it is to have a strong top nine as opposed to a really strong top six and a good bottom six with guys who can do the pluggers work, and then maybe spin some of those top nine guys, some of those dudes fighting to get into the top six, for some defensive help, if you know what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm. I think it's extremely important that I think it's more important for a team to have a strong top nine than a really strong top six, because two lines can be shut down. Sometimes, the battles are won when that third line is of a high quality. And like right now, the Leafs are using Engvall with Kerfoot and Kapanen. And, if Mikheyev was healthy, he'd probably be on that third line. Maybe he'd be up on the second line, and Andreas Janssen would be on the third line. But that line, compared to some of the other third lines of teams in the Atlantic Division, is more talented offensively. And, teams will match up Barkov against Tavares and Trocheck against Matthews. Who's the third line center on Florida that matches up with the Kerfoot line? That's where you have an advantage over a team like the Panthers. It's the depth of your lineup. I think the Leafs, I believe their fourth line has to be better. That's why I've never been a big proponent of Freddie Gauthier, because I just don't think, even though he's set a career high in goals this year, that he's not a talented enough offensive player and not good enough defensively to warrant the opportunity he's had on the fourth line. I thought I was a proponent of Jason Spezza getting more time. They have enough depth at forward in this organization to have an effective third line and fourth line, and that's why, I feel probably either before the deadline or over the summer, you're going to see some of those excess forwards being traded for defensive
Thanks
help.
to Super Coop for a contribution to community. Lord Longmarch, should the Leafs trade for a defenseman or promote some from the farm? Obviously, they've promoted from the farm. Liljegren's been on the ice. Sandin's had an opportunity with the big club. Clearly, they have to trade for a defenseman too. Last question for you, and I've read a lot of stuff on social media in regards to Dubas and his plan, and you have people who want him fired, others who want him to be bronzed out front of Scotiabank Arena. Look, he's still developing as a manager and still building a team. If Kyle Dubas was given carte blanche, and the Leafs said, go for it. Do what you got to do. We're behind you 100%. Create this team. But the result had better be a Stanley Cup winner. Where is that right now in terms of a timeline? I mean, does he need to tear down a little bit more before he can build up? Or is he in a position where he can only utilize some of the things that he believes in order to get to a point where he's going to have to compromise some of his values and some of his beliefs? And when I say values and beliefs, does he even have a value and belief system yet? He's so new to this business. And I know a lot of people think he's ahead of his time. And that's exacerbated by the fact that we're covering the Maple Leafs. Where is this guy in the chronology of building a team to having that team he's built win a championship?
Well, I think it's too far on one side to say he's going to be emblazoned at Scotiabank Arena at Legends Row, and another to have him thrown out on his behind on 40 Bay. Neither one are going to happen. He's got time. He is this team's general manager for at least 2, maybe 3 seasons. He's going to be given, I think he's been given carte blanche. He's been given the keys to the car. He's going to do what he thinks is best. Now, I have enough confidence in Kyle Dubas as a manager and as a hockey observer that if the direction of this team is wrong in terms of them being too skilled and too speedy and not enough in terms of defensive ability and toughness, that he'll adjust, and they'll have the ability to do that. But the core group is here. It's Marner, it's Tavares, it's Matthews, it's Morgan Riley, and it's Freddie Anderson. Now, Anderson's contract is up after next year. Riley's contract is up in 2 years after this year. The rest of them are 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So he's got time. And with that talented group, what he's probably going to do is if it doesn't work this year, he's going to adjust the support players and the secondary players until they're good enough to help that core group get to the promised land. What is it, a guarantee that they win a Stanley Cup? No, I wish it was, but that's what he's going to do. And I think Brendan Shanahan has every confidence in Dubas, and I think Leaf fans should, it's the right of every fan to be skeptical, but I think that they have a good general manager here, and you just have to watch and see what he does.
Mike, last question for you, and this is the question that's on everyone's mind. Which side wins the All-Star Classic, the Wales or the Campbell Conference?
Well, who cares? And it's not the Wales and the Campbell Conference anymore. It's the divisions, unfortunately. But I honestly, I won't be watching it, so I won't care.
That is the last time the All-Star game actually mattered, when the orange guys versus the white with orange hints guys used to play in those big games. The Wales versus the Campbell Conference All-Star games, the best.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last consequential All-Star game for me was when Gretzky was a young player and Gordie Howe was playing for Hartford, and I think it was at the Olympia in Detroit. I'm pretty sure it was 81 or 82. That was the last one that really mattered to me. I did hear Dave Poulin on TSN radio tell the story of how he was in the 86 All-Star game, and Mario Lemieux was pissed off after the first period because Wendell Clark was actually running people. He was a rookie that year, and he was running players in the All-Star game. And basically, Lemieux was saying, what are you going to do about this guy? It was an All-Star game, and Wendell Clark was playing like it was, a real game.
Yeah, Wendell Clark had no skill, though. Anyway, got to go. We'll talk to you soon.